Welcome to American Whiskey. As always, I'm your favorite host in the whole entire world, Big Sturg. Over on the other side, as always, we have Dougie Fresh.
What's up?
Justice League.
How's it going, guys?
Peanut. What's up? Amanda Bryant.
Hello.
MyKala.
Hi.
Listen over to the show, by the way. And we've also got, for just a second, we do have our producer, Levi. So grab a beer, grab a whiskey, grab a wine, grab whatever it is you sip on. We want to sit back, have a good time. Hopefully you guys are excited for this episode. It's going to be a really, really good time. Something different that you may not hear about often. We will be talking about the history of women in the distillation world and brewing world. So we're going to sit back, have a great time tonight, and hopefully capture some good moments here, guys. So let's get started. All right, guys, before we get started, as always, Burned Out Winery. You can see it on the desk here. We're super close with these guys. They have some of the best wine in the world, frankly. I've had the best. It is the best. Hit the commercial. If you're looking for a unique wine experience, check out Burned Out Winery. Founded by a team of siblings who turned their passion for winemaking into a thriving business. They focus on crafting exceptional small batch wines, from Moscato to tart cherry and spiced apple to their delightful sangrias. There's something for everyone. Each bottle tells a story, complete with a creative name that reflects their journey. Their wines are not only fantastic, but they're also affordable, making them a great choice for any occasion. You can easily order online at burnedoutwinery.com or connect with them on Facebook. They deliver. Whether you're local or out of state, they'll ship right to your front door. Support this hardworking team and savor the taste of Burned Out Winery. This is Big Sturg with American Whiskey. All right, guys. So once again, Burned Out Winery, the best. So, MyKala, I think the appropriate thing here is, I know you're new to the team here, but
Yeah.
you can introduce yourself again. And Amanda, I'd love it for you guys to both introduce yourselves real fast.
Well, I'm MyKala. I'm the newest member of the American Whiskey team, complete with also Mamas, who just got into her cat sack. She is obviously, Sturge likes to call himself the favorite host, but like we all know it's Mamas. He could be second favorite because Lady Meowington reigns supreme. I'm a distiller in Portland, Oregon. I've been distilling for about 8 years now, and I can't imagine myself doing anything else.
Yes, girl. Awesome. Okay. So my turn?
Yes.
Okay. I am Amanda Bryant. I am a self-taught distiller. Some of you guys may know me from the Master Distiller Show or the Moonshiner Show on the Discovery Channel, which is something that I've been doing for the last couple of years. That has projected me into the legal industry. I kind of just am a gypsy distiller. So I travel around to all different states and I work with people in the backwoods. I work with people in legal distilleries and try to learn as much as I can. And I just recently this year opened up my own educational craft distillery where we are bringing you into the distillery to have you make whiskey with us. But we're currently building a location in St. Paul, Virginia that is due to be open this year. And at the moment, we're just hosting classes at another distillery in North Georgia. So super proud of that because never thought I'd be doing anything other than roofing. But here I am chatting with all of you guys about the history of whiskey. So I am honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. And also congrats on your many successes. I can't wait to hear about your new distillery opening.
Thank you. Unholy Beginnings Distilling Company.
Yes.
We are religious people. It's nothing to do with the building was a brothel, saloon, and a speakeasy. So the building itself has Unholy Beginnings, and that's where the name comes from. For anybody out there who's like, I won't come there now. It's okay.
Yeah. The Holy Spirits be with you.
It's okay. Don't come. It'll be all right. So the one thing that we've done since the beginning in the birth of American whiskey is go around the horn to talk about what we are sipping on. Amanda, would you like to do the honors?
I have, and this is a newfangled contraption. It's H2O.
Oh, wow.
This is not moonshine. I swear to God, guys, it's water. I'm in a hotel room right now, and I've tasted whiskey all day today on 5 different stills. So I am just rehydrating now and drinking water, and I got some coffee over here.
I was
I'm
trying to.
refining my palate by laying off of the heavy drinking so hard.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out
Very
before you said what it was, what the over under was on liquor or water.
I mean, you guys can tell me. It's like plausible deniability, you know? That's another thing. Is
Yeah.
it liquor or is it water?
MyKala, what are you sipping on?
I am sipping on my company's Portland Dry Gin 33. It's our take on a London Dry with a little bit of citrus peel that just kind of adds a nice bright note to it. It's not quite as piney as some of the like harsher London Dries. Makes a really good variety of cocktails,
Perfect.
especially if you just drink it with ice.
Peanut, you got anything down there other than H2O?
Yeah, I got a little bit of Mountain Dew, with some sort of salted caramel crown in it.
Ooh,
Okay.
that sounds disgusting. But
Oh,
I
no.
was like,
Okay.
that is the hold on. We can't just gloss past that. I
That
do
was pretty good.
sometimes we try to mute him, but
no, I have questions because I will always try everything once. This may have hit my limit. This might be the thing where I'm like, I don't know, Dad.
I know.
What
No,
does it
you
taste
gotta
like?
try it. Don't knock it till you try it. It's really good.
All right. I will suspend my disbelief until I come there and try it, but I have disbeliefs.
I'm with you.
gonna
I
prove you
refused
wrong.
to even try it earlier. So, Dylan, what are you sipping on?
I'm not sipping on that.
Thank God.
I'm just going nice and easy with a natural light.
Dougie Fresh.
Also sipping on a natural light. I also have a little bit of apple brandy in front of me and some water.
H2O. I've never heard of water. So I'm sipping on Popcorn Sutton's bourbon whiskey. I think Peanut, you brought it over a couple months back. That's the first thing I grabbed. And then some Natty Lights. So, guys, we're really excited about this episode. We're going to dive right into this if you guys are good with it. Is everybody good with it? Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
So when you think about the alcohol industry, I think a lot of us that are listening will picture a rugged man with a beard, casually enjoying a small batch bourbon, possibly a craft beer at the same time, while wearing some cowboy boots. This image is quite often representing the modern male distiller or the brewer, right? And, what if we told you that the art of distilling and brewing and fermenting has been a deep historical root among women, and consider the labor involved in these crafts. So long hours spent grinding mash and managing stills. It's a lot of hard work, right? And it was done by female ancestors who milled the grain for bread, maintained the households, the health, and processed herbs for cooking and medicine. And in many cultures, brewing beer was a role specifically designed for women, viewed as a sacred duty performed by matriarchs, right? And the decline of the female brewer began during the witch hunts and of the Europe and colonial America days in the 15th to the 17th centuries. Women who harnessed the nature to create wine, beer, and spirits were often labeled as witches, actually, and accused of using their cauldrons and the purposes. Instead of crafting delightful beverages, they were these mean and nasty witches. If that hysteria doesn't, if it wasn't enough to derail the movement, the Industrial Revolution ultimately pushed women out of brewing as the male-dominated factories replaced many small-scale operations. So, who were these pioneering women? How did they contribute to the drinks that we enjoy today, whether relaxing on a couch or whether we're relaxing on a beach? And are women making the resurgence in the industry today? That's what we're going to talk about. So join us as we explore the often overlooked history of women in the wine, spirits, and beer. And maybe we'll try a cocktail later on. So, girls, I'm going to let you ladies take over here.
Awesome. Thank you.
MyKala, I love something that you had said, actually. I wanted to ask you if you could repeat it. You articulated it so perfectly
yeah.
when I spoke to you. You had mentioned something about when you as a female got into the distilling industry, what you thought you were doing and what you realized you were actually doing. Do you remember what you said? Kind of.
God, I'm so eloquent that it's just so hard to keep track.
You said it so beautifully. I don't even want to like repeat what she said, but you basically said something like you thought you were getting into the male industry to like rebel and, go against the grain a little bit and do something just like very cool and different. And then eventually kind of, I think what we both learned was that we are just one of many women who have been in this industry for a long time. And the deeper you go back and research, you learn that we're just following in a bunch of other women's footsteps. Right. So you said it really beautifully. I butchered it. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no. Well, at least you brought it to the forefront of my brain, which was just an empty chasm of regret. I think so. When I first started getting into brewing and distilling, it kind of was expected that I would move into the front of house. They're like, cool, you're a great salesperson. Like, you are personable. That's where, like, it was effectively get, like, into the sales kitchen. But I have always loved creating and producing things for other people to enjoy. And so when I first started trying to find a position in distilling, I thought that I was being rebellious and that I was going against the grain. And it was to a certain extent kind of from that, but I continued in brewing and distilling because I realized that there's such a rich history of this being a woman's game and this being something that we've been doing for generations, for centuries. And so I stuck with it throughout all of the dealing with the kind of male dominated industry mindset because I knew that it was actually like part of my history and it was something that I had every right to be doing. And just because the modern times doesn't recognize that doesn't mean that I can't persist and continue to highlight our own rich history.
That's good.
See, I told you guys she said it
Thanks.
beautifully.
It's real.
Yeah.
Those words.
Yeah.
I just wish I could remember what I say half the time. I'm just
It's
like,
not right.
And that's
I
all
also
you are from her.
Yeah. I think it's interesting though, even though sometimes you don't remember what you're saying, everyone is listening to you. And so I think Amanda just hit that a few minutes ago. A lot of conversations been had over the last few days, right? About this episode. And what you say is beautiful. Right? I mean,
thank you very much. I
it's right
appreciate
on.
that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
impact, right?
Impact. Good. That's a good word.
I also felt like I was kind of maybe rebelling a little bit, but I mean, I'm the type of person, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it tenfold. So I think the whole, the moonshining, distilling on your own, being self-reliant, that was really appealing to me. And then the fact that when I really got out and realized that not a whole lot of women are doing this, I was like, well, I'm just going to show a whole bunch of women that they can do this too, like, let's do it. And then exactly like you said, as I got more into the industry and learning more about, I love history, right? The history is what really draws me in. The American history of distilling, but also just researching a little bit of, just for this episode even, I learned a whole lot more things, which is so cool about my job is that I get to research and learn constantly. I'm a constant student, but just there's so many amazing stories. Like I literally, the coolest one that I found, but my favorite was that a modern day pot still or a direct fire still, right? That version of the distillation equipment, a pot still itself, was invented by a woman. And I did not know that until I went to reading recently. So Mary of Jewess or Maria of Jewess, I think because she was Jewish, but the way it was spelled at the time was 2,000 years ago. She was an alchemist and she was generally making aquavita. And she was really playing with metallurgy and trying to create gold, which was what a lot of alchemists at the time were doing. Yeah, that's her right there. But she created the trivicos, which is essentially like a modern day direct fire pot still. And it's a glass contraption that has fire underneath. And she was trying to harness nature, the distillation that naturally occurs in the Earth's atmosphere. So that was what she envisioned. And she tried to create that in a vessel of glass. And we currently still use the trivicos today in modern chemistry equipment. It's still a piece commonly used, but then renditions of that have been used all throughout time to distill everything. So I was like, heck yeah, a woman invented the pot still. Like, go Mary of Jewess or Maria of Jewess. I found both spellings. But
Yeah.
that was 2,000 years ago, I think, right? Sometime. That was really pretty darn cool, I thought.
Well,
You
and
know,
especially
go ahead. Sorry, MyKala, go ahead.
especially because metallurgy and like even alchemy, whenever you picture like a old timey alchemist, it's almost always like a guy with a long fucking gray beard. Like even
Go
though it
wizard.
was basically a wizard. So much of historical references have been retroactively like man washed to kind of only highlight the men whose names are remembered, but so much of the homesteading and the taking care of stuff and the innovation. Because if we're doing a process, ultimately our human inclination is to find a way to do it better. And so through having the vast majority of responsibility for alchemy, for creating things, for cooking things, almost all of these innovations have come about from women because we're the ones doing it the most.
I kind of wonder, and what you guys think of this, but I wonder if it's the society that's blocking and not talking about the women in distillation, right? Or brewing. Because if you go back and you read, let's use biblical days, for example. There's a lot of history there of women that made wine, right? But I think I even said it in the beginning. We just picture rugged old men with gray beards that do this thing. So do you think it's the lack of history, or do you think it's because we just are ignoring it? Does that make sense?
Well, no, it makes sense. I guess I think because the rights of women for so long and even up until relatively modern times were so diminished and thought of as less, I think that they focused on like highlights of men in the industry instead of looking at the vast majority of the women who were doing the things. It's like we got to find one man who did the thing so we can talk about it from his perspective rather than trying to tell the story of all of these women who were doing it all of the time.
And I did some deep dive research through like a timeline of history. So if you retrace kind of chronologically women in distilling to what is, Eastern Europe at some point around, let's see, basically when they started burning witches at the stake, right before then, distilling or brewing was a rural woman or rural housewife's job because it involved keeping ingredients, keeping recipes, preparing them, patience, and waiting for fermentation to work all for several days. And before there was hops, even, it was something that was just a common thing. Women prepared the food and the beverages. So widows or unmarried women in Europe, they basically saw a way to make extra money brewing and distilling. It was commonly taught by mothers to their daughters because it was thought to be an attractive trait. If you were to marry them off, if your daughter could distill or brew for you, then she could make you alcohol. And if she didn't know how to do that, well, then she wasn't a very good wife. So it was very sought after for a woman to be able to distill. And there's even documents of in America, early America, in the colonial records where the new colonies were writing back to Europe and asking them to please send better brewers because the women brewers at the time were not efficient. So they weren't sending the best brewers to the United States or the colonies at the time to America. So they were asking for better women brewers. But what happens is alewives become a thing, right? Because widows are brewing beer now and they're selling them. They're selling the beer on the street corner at the market. They're inviting people into their houses, which became the like early ale houses were people's living rooms, women and alewives' living rooms. And these were just unmarried women that saw a way to make money selling alcohol. And then the Catholic Church started to portray these alewives. So there's I think I shared an image with you which portrays an alewife in a good manner at first, an early illustration where she's portrayed as this little homey, motherly kind of a woman. And that's the early portrayal of what the alewife was because she would welcome you into her home and you would share beer and libations for anyone. And then the Catholic Church kind of saw this as these evil women were luring you to steal men's money and get you to drink alcohol, right? So they started portraying this alternative image of what an alewife was, and she started to look more like a witch. She was evil, she was not to be trusted, and that's kind of the Catholic Church made this imagery and kind of pushed it around a little bit in, medieval times and shortly after that, because they were trying to steer people away from drinking alcohol. So they made alewives look like evil people, and there's a couple images of that in there.
Even outside of just like alewives being like kind of these widowed women who then were forced to either find a husband or find their own means of survival. And especially the Catholic Church was not interested in having independent women who did not, they didn't need no man. They were not interested in having women they could not rule over. And the Catholic Church was also responsible for a lot of the wine industry. So they also fought really hard to eliminate any competition in their own alchemy or in their own like alcohol sales. It's another reason why absinthe was such a demonized spirit, is because the Catholic Church saw that this relatively affordable and easily accessible spirit was cutting into their profits. So they started making it more and more difficult for folks to find. But because it is so high in alcohol content, the rate of alcohol dependency was drastically increased. So when these like bohemians and these people who are used to being able to drink this relatively inexpensive liquor, now they're forced into finding something else. And through their withdrawals, they would actually experience the DTs. And that is actually where the kind of fallacy of hallucination from drinking absinthe came from. It wasn't because you were drinking absinthe, it's because you couldn't drink absinthe because it was taken away from you. So it was just the withdrawal symptoms that were leading to these hallucinations. It wasn't the alcohol itself.
Interesting. I had never heard of that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, the false science behind wormwood and its hallucinogenic and kind of like deadly properties were conducted by scientists who were paid off by the church. And the lab studies they did were using like an essential oil of wormwood, which thanks, mamas. The chemical that's in wormwood that does it, dude, she tugs on this like at least once an episode. It's just like,
Leave her alone. Just leave her
just
alone.
trying to snap my neck. I was leaving her alone. I was giving her nice pets. But thujone, which is a chemical in wormwood that is, in fact, deadly to humans, the concentration used during the lab studies versus the concentration that is actually found in absinthe is so drastically less that it was basically like a false study. They were just using it to further their own propaganda, and that's why absinthe was rendered illegal. And it took until, I think, late 1900s, like I'm thinking like 70s, 80s, before chemical analysis was able to determine that the levels found there are actually not poisonous to you, and then we could import absinthe again.
That is an interesting history on absinthe.
Yeah, I learned that when I was researching for the absinthe episode I did. I was like, well, tell me about this so I don't fucking kill myself.
You know what I think interesting though is like when I was going back. So what was this? 2 weeks ago, Dylan, MyKala, that we decided we wanted to do something like this. 3 weeks ago.
It was, I was like, it's either like
it seems like it's been a while.
2-3 weeks. It's been a month. I've been super fucking excited.
Yeah, and so I started doing the research, and it's interesting because Dylan and we were all in the whole podcast. We're inside of a group text message, and we're hitting on there, and we're like, "What's the most interesting thing that we read?" And Doug's like, he hits it hard with one that's like makes you go and Google, right? He's like, "Dude, these women were hung, completely destroyed, right? Just off of doing the things that they were doing to provide for families or whatever it was." But you see different comments in here about how it doesn't like they were tortured and murdered. End of story. They were doing something to provide for their family. And let's be completely candid here. Women, when was the women rights movement even? I mean, we're talking 1900s. We're like in the 19s. That's really fucking sad, right? So
Mhm.
everything prior to that is not hard to believe. It's so believable because women were looked down upon so poorly, and women are out there doing what they can,
Mhm.
and then they're hung, right? Or
Right. Burned.
it's
whatever.
just fucking crazy to me.
Yeah, there's one comment I'm scrolling up for that we kind of touched on, but like women being viewed as property and that sort of like independence where they were unmarried, luring people into their home to like take money from them. It's like that whole view of, well, you can't own things if you are a thing to be owned.
Right. I think it's the same thing when slavery was going on, which that's a whole nother episode, right? There's a lot of plantations where slave owners had their slaves that were actually running the liquor on the plantation.
And then they were
You know,
taking credit for it.
They were taking the credit for it, and like I said, that could be a whole other episode. But what I was reading was that also happened with women as well.
Yeah, rural women are like, if you didn't have a lot of money, then your wife would make the alcohol for you. And if you were a wealthy woman, well, then you had slaves to do it for you, essentially. And that's what happened. It's dark history, right? But it's the reality of what happened. It was like, honestly, it became a shit job that just people didn't want to deal with. So they would make your wife do it, or you made slaves do it. At Mount Vernon was run by slaves that were owned by George Washington. That's who farmed the land and ran the distillery. And then Jack Daniels was the same. Uncle Nearest, right? Isn't that the actual distiller credited to the Jack Daniels? He was the one that kind of really made all the whiskey there. So it's really a thing that, poor women or wealthy families had slaves doing it, so the wives didn't have to do the work. And that's the reality of it. It's like whatever we don't want to do, we'll make them do. But
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad because I love doing it. That's why I make liquor. I love making mash. I love waiting for a fermentation to work off. And doesn't matter how many hours I stand in front of a hot ass still, I'm excited the whole time until the very end to see what comes out, so.
It's not fair, though, Amanda, because women have superpowers. Dylan can attest to this. When we first started running on our own, like we were using one of those crank grinders. Like we would buy the corn and we would, do it on our own.
Ooh, a little hand milled, craft milled.
Whatevs. And my wife I'd be like, Dylan, I'd be every 4 minutes just swapping out, right?
Yeah.
The wife, while breastfeeding a child, doing 4 50-pound bags, just not stopping. I'm like, well, it's not that fucking hard to believe. They're pretty much superheroes. So whatever. That's the way I look at it. Sorry.
No, please tell us how much of superheroes we are.
I'm just saying.
We definitely don't hear it enough.
Yeah, I mean, what's after the Catholic Church started to really like make women brewers or look badly is kind of the imagery of a brewer. I think was really interesting because they wore a pointy hat at the market so that you would know to buy beer from her. She literally wore what is the modern day perception of a witch's hat. She would hang a broom outside of the storefront when the brew was ready. There was lots of cats around because the cats would get rid of mice. And she was seen as a woman stirring cauldron. So I had sent you guys some photos of that. And it's like what an alewife was perceived as. And then kind of right before they started burning us, like MyKala, you and I would be burned at the stake if we were.
Oh, absolutely. It
mixing
would have
mash
happened
and
long
cauldron
before I even
yeah.
got into this, though, to be fair.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty ironic to think about sometimes. And they were just making medicine. Some of the recipes that if you look at the 1600s and it's kind of sort of like absinthe or these, they have 30 different ingredients in them that are all botanical and roots. And there's no way they were adding that many ingredients into a spirit just because it tasted good, right? They had to be having medicinal properties or they were basing it off of other recipes that were medicinal. There's even though the Catholic Church portrayed women as being bad, if you go back earlier in the times before they thought that alcohol was bad, in the 5th and 6th century, there was patron saints of brewing. And they were women that worked at monasteries. And they were, we have Saint Bridget of Kildare.
Mhm.
She was a medieval saint in Ireland, and she is the patron saint of beer. There's like poems written about her. There was a lake of beer that she created for the King of Kings, and there's all these stories about, women brewing. And then there's a woman accredited to actually, she has the first documented written history of using hops in beer to prolong the shelf life of it is Saint Hildegard Bingen. So there's a picture of Saint Hildegard on there somewhere. I don't know if the slideshow is working, but we tried. It's
Yeah,
okay.
we had things.
But she was actually like writing things down in the monastery. She was a scholar at the time. She was like an
I'm trying to
abbess.
pull up these. Our computer is being really dorkish right now, so we are actually trying to make these slideshows pull up here. It's a pain.
Oh, there's
Oh, there
Saint
it is.
Brigid,
Yep.
right? So she was earlier, the Celtic one. And then the next one is Saint Hildegard. She has the first historically found writing of the integration of hops in brewing. So not to say that she's the one who thought of it, but she has the first written record of it. So she thought to record it first, that was important. So pretty cool that we can go back. And she was in 1098 to 1179. So that's what the years of her lifetime. So that's back when she was using hops in brewing. So I just found that really interesting that these are like big things. Like a woman invented the pot still. Women first recorded integration of hops in the making of beer. The first sour mash recipe that we have documented historically in the United States is written by a woman, Catherine Carpenter. And that's in the Kentucky Historical Archives. But Catherine Carpenter penned how to make a sweet mash, how to make a sour mash. And that is in the United States a historical document that, we still perceive as the woman was the first one to write it down. So like
Well,
women weren't just involved, they were like doing big things
Yeah.
historically, making records.
Well, and one of the things, like circling back to hops being used in beer, like it's a preservative and an antiseptic. So the practical applications of it as a medicinal element, that's what laid the groundwork for it then being used in alcohol. So once again, it circles back to you're the caretakers, like you are the medicine makers. We were the ones who knew all of the things and then found ways to implement that knowledge in a totally different field. Like the only reason that we can make beer and ship it across and enjoy it, beer from all over the world, from all over the US, is because women identified the use of this particular plant and were able to apply it in a field that most people can get behind.
Proud of us, right? Proud of them, I should say. Proud of them.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. I mean, even like I love ancient Egypt, right? I love the history of Egypt. And there was an Egyptian goddess who was the goddess of beer and childbirth. And they would pray to her. She was also the goddess of bread. So at the time, and then this actually is an image found in like an old hieroglyphic Egyptian painting that's up right now, portraying a woman brewing, women brewer serving beer to another woman. So a lot of images in the ancient Egypt were carvings or like statues of women making beer and women making bread. And they would make the bread and then use the bread to make beer because they didn't have enzymes. They didn't have the understanding of using a malted grain back then. So by baking the grains into bread, they were converting and breaking down the starches. And then they were able to ferment the beer more easily by mashing in with the bread that they baked. So this goddess was the goddess of bread, childbirth, and beer. Her name, I don't speak Egyptian, but
I know.
Tininette as the best I
What's
can
that?
do. So I apologize if
I
anybody
think
can't.
that was actually really
Yeah.
freaking solid.
Yeah,
It's real great.
I don't think I could do it better.
Give it a shot, Gayla. Give it a shot.
Tenenu is the word for beer. So they think that her name came from the word for beer. But that is, I love Egypt. It goes as far back. Like that's probably the oldest recorded history that I can find is 3100 BC is like when she was a goddess worshipped for brewing beer. And so, goes way back. Way back. We were doing
and I
this shit.
think Gordon touched on it. Like beer back in the day was safer than the water because it was boiled, like mashed. It had all of this kind of steps to make it safer. like all of these things were evaporated out. So like even just making like a weak beer or a near beer, which is what they made during Prohibition, oftentimes it was safer than the readily available water was there because it had been processed and turned into something that was sanitized.
Yeah. The United States, isn't that similar with apple cider? So when they were like traveling out west, they would travel with cider because as that slowly fermented, it was still safer to drink than some of the water that they were not really. Were they not really like boiling water at the point at that time? They didn't really understand that there was
I think
contamination in water.
Well, I think the issue was that we didn't have the scientific advancements to know that boiling water could make it safer. Like, it was kind of just like let it ride or turn it into something else. And the fun thing with like fermentation, and especially cider, it ferments at such a low pH that it is difficult for any like unfriendly bacterias to reproduce in that environment. So a lot of it was they just learned by if you drink this, then you'll get sick. But if you drink this, then you won't. So let's just drink more of that.
I
But
think a lot of time, MyKala, do you think maybe the water back then was probably more pure? So that so maybe the water that we're drinking from streams and rivers or whatever were not as polluted as now.
I
So
can see
maybe
like fast moving water, especially for sure. But the knowledge of like water safety. So if you live near a lake and that's your water source, you're going to drink it. But we know that like a closed off lake can be a breeding ground for different bacteria, even just like microorganisms that aren't necessarily that unhealthy for you, but in large quantities, like can cause intestinal distress. Like you might not die, but you will be uncomfortable. So I think for sure, like running water and that would contribute to them being able to drink that more easily. But for those people who were located in places where they didn't have that, finding that fermenting beverages and creating that low pH environment in order to kill off those more harmful bacteria, I think probably is what led us down the path of realizing that not only are we not dying from drinking this, but also we like it.
a lot.
So
A lot.
science.
A lot.
Sorry. What you say, Dylan?
I said history and science lesson.
Yeah.
This is
It's what happens when you bring the women's on.
well, you know what's interesting? It's like when I told my wife, I was like, "Yeah, we're going to do a woman episode." She's like, "I'll listen to that one," and I'm like, "What?" And she's like, listen." She does support me, believe it or not. Okay, but this is such episode. I think we see this a lot in different aspects
Mhm.
of society when it comes to women, right? I mean, we're talking women rights hasn't been around that long.
Mhm.
I mean, as silly
And
as
it's
that
drastically
sounds,
decreasing every single day.
there's so much history. Amanda, you're doing fucking amazing, by the way. There's a lot of
Mhm.
history. MyKala, you're doing great. There's a lot of history here. And and Phil, you brought it up. You're like, my favorite story about the history of women in distilling or brewing. What was her name?
They call her Big Haley. Is her
Big
nickname.
Haley. Big Haley.
Her name is actually, I'm going to butcher this, Mahala Mowens.
Mahalia. And some of the family members like to call her Mahaley, but it's Mahalia, Mahala. It's spelled very differently all over from what I could see. Yeah.
Mhm.
I went to her homestead,
Well, yeah, you were
researched.
telling me about that.
I deep dived into her a little bit for a period of time. I met a lot of her family members. I went to her family reunion. They're really great people, but she has an awesome story. So I love her story because she is a badass female moonshiner. And Big Haley, they called her catchable but not fetchable because she actually suffered from elephantitis. And the cabin that you see
Mhm.
here was originally located on top of a really hard to access ridge called Newman's Ridge in Vardy County in eastern Tennessee. Below the ridge was a sulfur spring or hot springs. So at the time in the 1800s, the legend is that people would come from all over the country, from even Canada and Mexico, to buy her brandy because it was so good. So deep diving into it, how are people finding her from all over the country, or why are people traveling to this little not known area of Eastern Tennessee. Surely word of mouth of Big Haley can't be traveling, but there was a hot spring, a medicinal hot spring, which became, a magnet for tourism at the time in the 1800s. So people would travel there and then learn that up on the ridge, you could go buy moonshine. So I think that's kind of what drew people there and made her legend become so popular. But she sold a lot of alcohol. Her and her family or her sons were making it there on top of the ridge because, again, it was a way to make money to support your family. Her husband did pass away. Some of the family members say that the husband sold and made alcohol, and this is true. But when the husband passed away, it became her and her son's responsibility. But some people say that she never actually made alcohol at all, but it is historically recorded that they would go to her cabin to collect her, to bring her to court, and they could not bring her down from the ridge because you couldn't even have a wagon with donkeys that could access the top of the ridge. It was so steep and inaccessible at that time in the 1800s that they would get there and they would essentially be like, "Do you have any moonshine?" Legend says she would hide it under her folds in her dress. And they would, try to be like, "Well, we have to take your still. We have to take any alcohol that you have." And then they would have to go back to the judge and be like, "Well, we got her. We confiscate all of her moonshine, but there's nothing we can do. We can't bring her to court. You can't prosecute her." So she was catchable, but not fetchable. And she did make alcohol, and her family did make alcohol. That is my opinion from the research that I've done, contrary to what some people believe, because there is documents of her wanted posters and there is documents of, I spoke to a relative of one of the police officers that had to go up to the ridge to try to fetch her. So I've heard it from like both sides of the story. It is really romanticized, right? Because she's like this big lady making all this moonshine and she's a legend. Legends become romanticized over time. But the reality of what I did learn from some of the historians, which was really interesting, was she actually dressed very well. She had nice things. She had ornate furniture. And to be in that area and have nice things meant that you were doing well for yourself. So she was a well-kept woman and then continued to take care of her children and her grandchildren. There was a story that her granddaughter came to her and said, "I need help. I'm pregnant. Me and my boyfriend want to leave town." And she went into a mason jar, and took out gold pieces and gave it to her granddaughter. So even, years later, she still had money laying around. So she must have been somewhat successful making alcohol and selling moonshine in that area. And that's the truth that I can determine, is that she was successful doing it. And I love her story because she's badass,
And I'm sure back then, like you said, she had gold. They would take payment in any form for their moonshine.
Trading,
well, especially living on such an isolated ridge and just kind of having her smaller family unit. Like, obviously money's not gonna get her everything if she's living in this kind of isolation. So the people bringing like food, reserves, like all of these different things to be able to barter for this moonshine was, like, I think at least speaks to the community of acceptance that I found as I've kind of delved more into this moonshine community. It's like, it's not all, or at least, sorry if this is a hot take, it shouldn't be just about the money. Like, it's about the community, it's about the people that you meet, it's about the bridges that you can build. It's really about taking care of each other in whatever way you can.
That's what it's all about, I think, right?
But to respect the people that came before us, whether, we consider ourselves distillers or hobbyist distillers, home distillers, or moonshiners, the rich history in the United States of American distilling or American moonshining is really inspirational, and it has been to me. Not just the women that do it. I like to highlight and tell the stories of the women that do it, but in general, the hardships that they faced, evading the law, evading the taxpayers, what they were just shunned from communities, moonshiners in general, because they were just trying to put bread on their tables. And I think Henry Lee Law talks about it in a book, 100 Proof, that he wrote. If you have not read that book, I highly recommend it. It gives you a really honest perspective of what it is to be a moonshiner. So a lot of people will say put moonshiner in their name, say that they're a moonshiner and they're proud of it. But to read that book and get an honest, like a real perspective of just how hard and just how shitty it really was to be a moonshiner, it's eye-opening, it's enlightening, and it changed my perspective and gave me even more respect for the people that came before us and what they were really dealing with, what it was really like to make moonshine. You lost your house, you would lose your family, you lose everything you owned, you were in jail numerous times. It was not a very cool thing, and it was actually an insult. to be called a moonshiner. Today, it's very different. But again, another important part of, I feel like, American distilling history is what it was like. And for women to do it, right? It was interesting for women were able to distill and bootleg more easily than men were, especially during Prohibition, because a woman could not be searched. So if the cop would pull them over in a car or stop them on the street, and that's where the term bootlegging came from, because they could hide a bottle in their boot and they couldn't be searched by the police because you could not search a woman. It wasn't proper to touch a woman, search a woman, and she's an innocent woman. So the perspective at the time was like, she's not smart enough or capable enough to distill or be selling alcohol illegally. So a lot of people actually forced women to do it, or it just kind of became a thing where women were like, I can get away with this at the time in the 1920s during Prohibition. And there was a lot of also really badass women in that era that just ran with it. They ran with the fact that they were sweet and innocent and nobody would think that they were doing something wrong.
Real quick before we go to on while you flip through your book, I think one of the things too of like oh no, my brain just went so blank. Touching on, I know. I should drink more gin about it. God, I hate ADHD sometimes. I'm so sorry.
It'll come back. When it comes back, just be
it
like,
will come back. I'll just raise my hand.
Yeah. That's why I invited you on the show. I didn't want to be alone. So it's all good.
Yeah. It's like we're just pinging off each other and we'll get it.
Yeah, I was going to say, to touch on what Amanda said, the mob used women a lot during Prohibition for that purpose.
The fact.
Yeah. There was a woman named Mary Dowling. So she owned her own distillery before Prohibition. Then during Prohibition, she was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And she tried to apply for a medicinal permit to distill. So what happened during Prohibition is they told everyone, you can't distill anymore legally, but we're going to give some licenses to a few places so that we can make alcohol for the government to prescribe to you for prescription uses. So a few distilleries, mostly in Kentucky, a few in Pennsylvania at the time, were given this license to distill for medicinal or federal use. And she applied for one of these, but did not get it. So then she started trying to sell off her alcohol under the table. She sold to what became modern day Van Winkle family, some of her barrels, and the rest she did sell under the table. She got in trouble for selling her liquor illegally during Prohibition. And then she was just like, screw this, I'm going to Mexico. So she went to Mexico and opened up her own distillery in Mexico at the time during Prohibition, where she then just kept doing what she was doing and was just like, screw you, America. If you don't want me to make liquor, I'm not going to stop. And she is just another fundamental, a woman in history who was inspiring, who kept doing what she was doing and distilling. But she remained very successful even in Mexico at the time. And I'm sure she was passing a lot of her liquor that she made over the border, right? And running it into the United States to feed that need that was going on, because no one was allowed to drink. So there was just, love that story too. She's a very cool lady. Did you remember what you were going to say?
No, not yet. I'm like participating, but also trying to rack my brain in the Rolodex. It's fine. We'll come back to it or we won't. Clearly it wasn't that important. We just roll with it. Yeah.
MyKala, first off, just because you forgot it doesn't make it not important. Okay.
Yeah, fair enough.
Fair.
I forgot
now
more
I
things
need to
than
know
I
what it
will
was.
ever know. I know. I'm trying to
because it'll be literally 4 a.m. when she messages you.
It will be. No, I'll send an email. I'm not that rude. I'll text you guys, but I won't email. I'll email Amanda. Be like, I thought of the thing.
Then please text me.
Okay.
Email me.
Because I do have.
What are we, strangers?
No, we're not. I think one of the things going back to like Prohibition, where in different general stores they would have like this pack of ingredients, and the instructions would be, under no circumstances should you ever combine these ingredients at this specific temperature while introducing this specific yeast, because if you do, then you will be creating alcohol and that is illegal. But it's literally like a brew in a bag to go kit, and you just better not. You just better fucking not. It was like, I used to give haunted pub tours in Portland, so we would talk about the history of Prohibition and all of the debaucherous shit that happened in Portland during that time, but I remember like outside of doctors just writing prescriptions for alcohol, all of the general stores were like, well, here's all of the things that you would need to make this illicit material and just don't. Like, yeah, okay, bud.
I found funny was I've been very lucky to meet some guys that are vintage whiskey collectors, and they are kind enough to like share what they have. Like, we want to show you this, right? They're excited about what they have and what they've
Yeah.
collected, and they're very excited to share it. Just like we're excited to like share our nerdy ass information and our brains with you guys.
Yeah.
But I've seen, and they brought some Prohibition era bottles, which what they would do is they would take the old bottles exactly how they were on the shelf before Prohibition, and then they would slap a sticker over top of it, or they would put it in a really pretty box. So they would turn the label around backwards and put it in this box. And it would say bottled and bond for medicinal use only. And they would just slap stickers over top of all these bottles and sold them for prescription. So my question always, or my wonder was, what did you have to go tell the doctor to get a prescription bottle bonded bourbon? Like, you know what, doc? I'm having a really stressful week. I could really use some bottled and bond right now. And he'd be like, here you go.
Instead of Wellbutrin, it's just well bourbon.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they just slapped a sticker over top of everybody else's stuff and sold it. And it was not okay to make or have, but if the federal government could sell it and prescribe it to you, I'm sure they were charging more for it than the average Joe was.
Yeah.
Sure they were.
So it's funny you say that, because when you go around and you see bottles say bonded in bond or anything like that, you think you're getting something special, which isn't the case anymore, in my opinion, because you can get something that's horrible. But when you look at it, you think, oh, I'm getting something bang for my buck right there.
Well, the kind of history of bottled in bond is during the height of kind of like widespread alcohol production. There were no what?
I was just saying I love this girl, but I'm dyslexic. Pointing the wrong way.
Yeah.
Love
dude,
this
every
girl.
time I try and point to Mama's when she's like behind me, I'm like, nope, other one. Nope. So during the height of like widespread alcohol production, you could basically put anything into it. People were using like tobacco to cover alcohol or to color it. They were putting chemicals. Part of the kind of like somewhat fallacy behind like early distillation runs will make you blind. Well, a lot of that was because people were engineering and building their stills from non-food grade materials. They were using like old car parts and other shit. So a lot of those heavy metals would be coming out in the beginning of your still. Like methanol will give you a headache, but the concentration that would be required to like fucking kill you or make you go blind is virtually impossible during fermentation and distillation of a natural grain product, kind of just in general. So the like moonshine will make you go blind was because they were using substandard still building materials. And that was another point of like, this is why alcohol can kill you. It's like, no, just people who make stills out of dumb shit can kill you. Yeah, it's like,
like radiators.
Yeah. No, like literally you joke, but like what a radiator cools your fucking engine. So why would it not be a good cooler for a still? Oh, because it will kill you. And so bottled and bond was introduced as this standard where it was one distiller, one distillery, one barrel. Like it was, you could guarantee that nothing outside the realm of like allowances would be put into this product. It wasn't necessarily a standard of quality or of like tastiness. It was a standard of this won't kill you.
At the time, it was the first standard of quality, right?
Yes.
It was like kind of the first time they actually tried to regulate and title something as, and then distillers at the time wanted it to be like they were voting for it. People that were doing distillation and barrel aging properly were all for bottled and bond because they wanted to say, we're doing this properly. We are not giving you some bathtub gin in a barrel that has some spit too in there, like.
Yeah. It's aged.
I also always get the image of, you talk about like the primitive stills and radiators. there's always this image of like the small, tiny little still that fit in an apartment, which we don't always perceive when we're thinking of like moonshining or making illegal alcohol. But it's an interesting part of the history of making illegal alcohol in the United States is that there were these little tiny stills that were maybe like 5 gallons or 7 gallons. The mob actually gave these stills out to people that were in little tiny apartments in bad neighborhoods and poor people. And they would say, you make liquor, we'll come at the end of the week and we'll collect it from you. And there's images of women that were, arrested for using these tiny little stills, which is today like the little stovetop stills essentially. But I
Yeah.
actually have one. I wish I was home because I could like show you all my toys, my crazy collection. But I
Yes.
have one of these little stills from the early 1900s that works in an apartment on a radiator, and it hooks up to a radiator to actually heat it. So the
Oh
hot
my
water from the
God.
radiator heats a coil inside the bottom of the still, and the whole thing itself is no more than about 6 gallons, and it's
That's so
made
cool.
beautifully made, right? But again, these old stills, we don't know what kind of solder was being used. Was it lead solder?
Totally. Yep.
It's in beautiful condition, but we can never run it again without knowing what the solder was in there, and
Yeah.
destroying it and trying to make it safe to use again. But it's a really cool part of history. I get the image of the woman at home with children or like the pregnant lady in her kitchen making these small little batches of alcohol, and then the mob or the mafia would come and collect that at the end of the week, give her some
Yeah.
cash, and she could feed her family that way. And again, this is people don't think like alcohol was made in populated areas, but my little baby still came from New York City, was where mine was found in an apartment in New York City. So it's just interesting. I love weird little anomalies, right? Of what we believe
Yeah.
in. I'm always like, this is an anomaly and it's different. I love this.
Yeah. I'm like, well, okay, so this is how we feel about this, but like, what is the science and why do we believe that? I think you said you're a like perpetual student, like a constant student. I can't remember your exact verbiage, but that is one of the things that I love the most about this job. It's like the place that I'm working now, the owner of it has been doing this for 20 years. So he was one of the first, I think, like 50 distilleries in the United States. Like he is, or maybe Oregon, but at the very least, like he's one of the fucking top tier dudes who there were no classes, there were no online resources that you could look at to kind of hone your craft. You just had to figure it out by trying something, fucking it up, and then trying something else. And I think one of the best compliments that I can give is even after 20 years, like we still try stuff and we still fuck stuff up. Like it's always in the interest of learning and being able to be better at our craft, but by no means have all of us learned everything that we need to know about that. And considering the rich decades, centuries, like almost thousands of years of this history, we still don't know everything. And I think that is one of the hallmarks of how cool and exciting this industry is even as much technology as we have, like we're still learning every day as long as we make that commitment to learn.
Never truly master the craft is what I like to say. You could spend a
Yeah.
lifetime studying and experimenting and honing your skills, but I would die an old person with a million things to still learn and try. Like just
Absolutely.
going through the history of all the innovations that have occurred, and then every time I want to research something or I try to figure something out, I can usually find it somewhere in history that's already been done somewhere regionally.
Yeah.
Somebody has done some version of this. Like very, very rarely is anything a new technique that has not been done before. Somebody somewhere has done this at some point, and
Yeah.
it may not have been recorded properly. It might have been forgotten, but these things have all been done. And essentially what we kind of become is like archaeologists of the craft, where we're just like, let's
100%.
learn about this old stuff and then reinvent it. Like I love
Yes.
trying to reinvent like the old mash recipes and find the old yeasts and get the old grains and bring that back to see what did American whiskey really used to taste like.
Yeah. It's also almost daunting to see all of the historical innovations that came about because almost like they needed it. They needed to find ways to do all of this. And I feel like we currently in the industry, we're struggling to find ways to innovate. Like we can come up with new products or new kind of fine tuning, but I am excited to see what we as an industry can learn how to innovate and what the next step or what the next thing could be. So you said it's all refining what we've learned from the past, but I want to see what we can do and what we can bring for to the future that future generations are then going to use as their learning experience and then refine from there.
Greatest innovations have come out of necessity, right? All of them. Even like a thumper,
Yeah.
that's an innovation out of necessity in order to make a mash and do a doubling run more quickly and get out of the woods. Just all things are innovated out of a need for something. So if we can try to find like what's a big need that we have right now, then we can try to solve that problem.
Exactly.
But
Like, what do
you're
we
right.
need now? Yeah.
You're right. It's hard to innovate at the moment because most has already been done, but you got to find the need, and then you can figure innovation out.
Well, and
We can
even
do
just talking with you about your like unholy beginnings, you're in this historical distillery. We were talking about like everything is kind of as hands-on as possible, and to try and find a way, like we have kind of everything we need. No matter where you are, you can order stuff online. You can have a still maker make it for you. Like we're not even having to innovate our own stills. What the first distillery I worked for in production, one of the owners, he hand hammered all of the copper tops to the stills, and I just thought that was a really amazing part of our story is like out of necessity we created this thing. It was based off of designs and shapes that were very much used, so it wasn't like a re-innovation. It was just a hallmark of craftsmanship and a dedication to flavor. But how do we find the thing where like we need to come up with it? Like how do we find ways to implement flavor? Like maybe it's fermentation, maybe it's different yeast strains, maybe it's different grains. Like how do we find the ways to innovate that aren't just variations on what we've learned before?
It's the big question.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to do
Who
it, but
knows? Yeah, we're trying.
hard to like remake the stone wheel. Is
Mhm.
that an expression? That sounds like one.
Yeah, yeah. No need to reinvent the wheel, but
Yes,
like,
thank you.
what if there were a better
Well,
wheel?
So I got a question for both of you. What is the biggest challenge you found becoming distillers?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think for me, at least, the biggest hurdle was finding a place because I came into this with like home brewing experience. I was a college dropout, so I didn't have the like education background that a lot of people look for, even in entry level positions. It took 2.5 years for me to find someone who was willing to take a chance on me and just teach me what they wanted me to do. And through that, I found my own ways of innovating and creating. And so for me, because it is such a popular industry, both brewing and distilling in Portland, even though we're like a big city, it's relatively small, but everyone thinks that they want to get into this industry. And so just finding a place to be able to explore your craft and also like the recognition of being a craftsperson as a woman definitely plays into it. But I think honestly, the highest hurdle was just being able to get into it.
That's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good answer.
Yeah.
Amanda, you want to hit on your biggest?
Yeah. I think for me, it's a little different. So I kind of just distilled on my own as a hermit, right? I was a hermit for anybody that doesn't know me. I've only been in the public eye for 4 years. And then any time before that, I was a complete hermit, antisocial, off the grid, did not have social media, a computer, or a cell phone. But I had a really great group of friends that supported me. And I owe me pursuing the craft to those guys that really stuck with me and encouraged me to keep trying and keep distilling. And I have gotten a lot of support from a lot of really great people. And I've been really, really lucky. When I went on Master Distiller, just getting on there, the one thing that is terrible is that people will say that I don't really deserve or haven't really worked for the opportunities that I have been given. And I have worked really hard my whole life. I dropped out of high school, started roofing, found distilling, which was like a sense of purpose for me. I was finally able to educate myself, and I loved it. I
Hmm.
felt good. It was just a passion that I found. And I've been lucky enough to be able to continue to pursue that. But people have just come out, taken me under the wing, whether it's like a backwoods moonshiner and I'm like, hey, I'm this random chick. Like, I know you don't know me from Adam and I'm just some bitch, right? But like they have, once I've shown my work ethic and shown that I'm serious about what I'm trying to learn and I'm willing to do anything. I'll do whatever so that I can learn a little bit. People are very accepting of me. There's just a lot of perception that I'm here because I'm a woman. So I'm the token woman, right? Or I'm just here because I'm a girl or I'm attractive, or they could just, that's the only reason that I have done the things that I have done. But I can speak that they have not come easily. I have worked very hard to learn what I have learned. And just, it's a feeling that you need to constantly prove yourself in the industry and constantly prove that I'm a woman, I'm capable, I know what I'm doing, I deserve to be here. That's constantly how I feel. And I think I'll always just feel that way. But I know that I'm good at what I do. But at the same time, I always just feel like, I think, MyKala, you and I spoke about it. It's called imposter syndrome, where what that really is I think, honestly, you just care so much and you're so self-conscious of what you're doing and you want to do everything so well that you constantly ask yourself, am I doing this right? Am I good at what I'm doing? Do I need to improve? Am I doing anything wrong? And it's that feeling you get at night where you're just like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? Imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Well, and you cut. Oh,
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Just a real quick. Yeah, we definitely. I didn't apologize this time, at least.
True.
That's true.
I did it. I'm learning. Definitely speaking on the imposter syndrome, but like also being a woman in like a currently male dominated industry, like there is that need to prove yourself. And I have had the privilege of working at 5 different distilleries in Portland because I go where the jobs are. And I've also worked at a brewery that had 0 technological advancements. So like when mashing in, we started with a fucking paddle. And I started as a delivery driver and a keg washer. Like you always have to be willing to start at the bottom, show your work ethic, show your dedication, because there's such a high bar of being taken seriously where I've never balked at having to do all the bitch work, all of the shitty, fucking disgusting, gross ass jobs, because I want to do this for the rest of my life. And I have no problem showing that I can do it. Not even that I'm willing, but I can do it. And so you start at the bottom, you do all of this crap stuff. And even when you get to a point within your own company that you have established yourself and respected, as soon as you go somewhere else, they're like, you immediately start from the bottom, regardless of what you've achieved. You immediately start at the bottom of consideration. It is very daunting and definitely contributes to the imposter syndrome, because some of that is like your own want to do a really good job, but you also have the added pressure of being a minority in a profession and not wanting to make a bad name for anyone else who chooses to do that. Like, I think you had talked about like seeing women on the show made you feel like you could do the show. And even though, like, when I first went on it, I came in 3rd fucking place, even though they were like stoked, but I still like came in 3rd. And it took 2 years before I even considered like trying to go back. Because if I go home 3rd again, I'm like, I'm fucking quitting. I'm just going to drive a bus. I'm going to cash in on that $7,500 fucking sign-on bonus. And I am just going to be a bus
Be
driver.
nice. I drive a bus. Be nice now, MyKala.
No, I literally would drive a bus because they do have a hefty fucking sign-on bonus.
Don't do it. Actually, don't do it.
Well, I won't now because I did it.
I substitute and drive, so it's different.
So, Serge, you had a question?
Yeah. So,
Yes,
I look at, first off, Amanda, MyKala, I'm not taking anything. So I'm trying to decide how to, I want to say like, I know what you guys are saying, but I don't, because I'm not a woman. I'm a white guy, and, there's a lot of things that come easy being, just a guy in general. Right. And
yeah,
I
understand you're speaking from a point of sympathy. Like,
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say it.
Yeah.
If I hurt people's feelings, then so be it. But but I do know what it feels like to chase a dream, right? So
Mm-hmm.
first off, if you go to chase a dream, the odds in America are against you, correct? Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are like, why would you start a podcast and think anything would happen with it, right? You know, do you know how much money that takes? Do you know how many people are not going to listen? First off, the first 8 years I did it, yes, I know how many people are not going to listen, and I know how much money I'm putting towards it. My wife reminds me of this, and so
She will
great
never
woman, by
leave.
the way, best woman I've ever known. But so, what do you do? Right, you still grow and you continue to do it. Why do we do it? Well, it's because it's something that we love to do. It's something that every day we wake up and go to our 9 to 5, but at the end of the day, you still have your after 9 to 5 to chase that dream still, right? You still have some time of the day to go do what it is, whether it's full time or whether it's not, you still have some time in the day to go make it happen, right? Phil and I are going to be up at 4:30 in the morning. We're going to go do what we have to do, but at the end of the day, we're still going to come here, right, Phil? We're still going to do the things that we're dreaming to do. So my question for you guys, with everything, being a woman, being, you know, a distiller, which is, those two words don't seem to go together as often as they should. And so my curiosity is, when did you decide, okay, I know I like to distill. I know it's probably not the norm, but today's the day that I do it. What took you, you know, Amanda, you said that MyKala kind of helped you push that, right? You saw her on the Master Distiller show. And so, you know, it gave you a lot of, I guess, strength. Would that be the word? Like strength to do that?
So yeah, I was always like a goody two shoes, and to distill for me is obviously you're breaking the law. It's something illegal. It's sort of taboo, but was interesting, and I liked doing it. But people had come before me and normalized it on those TV shows. As silly as it sounds, and you can say what you want about the Moonshiner show, I will ferociously defend Master Distiller, because that is a whole bunch of people who have never been on television, and they are not actors. None of us are actors. I think if you see me here, like, I'm not an actor. I'm not an actor on the Moonshiner show. I'm not an actor on Master Distiller show. So it's nerve-wracking. It's hard to be on camera, but they are there doing what they're doing, taking the risk that they could look stupid or make a mistake in a competition. And it's so hard. It's so nerve-wracking. And everybody that does it is like commendable in my book, because you can say you make great liquor, but to actually put yourself out there, for me, no one had ever tasted my alcohol before other than my friends. And I just assumed they're being nice to me. So I was shitting bricks and shaking in my boots like a little leaf. And I would go outside and I would cry in between filming breaks. And I was like,
Oh my God,
I messed up. I shouldn't be here. But people that came before me normalized it for me. And I said, well, you know, if these people can do it, if these women can do it, I can do it too. And that was a big part of the reason that I had to try to like put my big girl panties on and get out there and try to just stay on the main show and get over the fact that like I don't really want to be in the public eye that much. That's why I don't do a lot of podcasts. I actually get anxiety every time I have to go on camera and shoot Discovery. I break out in rashes. I call them my filming rash. I get nervous to do a podcast. And once I get in here, I'm fine. Like, I'm a perfectionist, but in your mind, you think about it. So it's important for me to try to be in the public eye and do what I do and do it well. And the same with you, MyKala. I really admire you and your intelligence and just the fact that you're just an amazing person, but you're like killing it in the distilling industry. And I hear you speak and you're so intelligent and you're so knowledgeable. And I'm like, damn, like I try to learn something from every person that I meet. And I know you guys have also said that it's not like women and distilling doesn't seem like something that goes together. But recently what I found is there's a shit ton of women distilling right now. And it might not be a common thought.
I didn't mean it like that. What I'm saying is,
No.
I felt like
didn't think they. Yes. Yeah.
Well,
General populace.
I just felt like I need to fit my
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You're
I'm sorry.
Shut the fuck up, Sturge.
Yes,
women actually distilling and they're doing groundbreaking things just currently today. Like we are really pushing the forefront. It's still in some areas, in some states, still like a guy's game. But it's not the case everywhere you go, I don't think, anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Right? What do you think about that, MyKala? It's certain places that are still sort of backwards a little bit.
I think so. So circling back, like what really pushed me to do it. So my best friend, who's also a distiller, we met in Corvallis when he was studying in their fermentation science degree program, and just getting to learn from him doing all of these like crazy weird homebrew ideas and then being able to do my own. I realized that like that was the perfect combination of me wanting to create stuff and also me wanting to make other people happy, which I know sounds like a fucking Miss USA answer, but ultimately anything that I make, I want people to be happy when they like consume it, when they see it. Happiness is what will save the world. And when I moved to Portland and I realized how difficult it was, I spent the time, I kept home brewing. I would not let go of this. And to finally like find a place that was accepting was truly special to me. And then when I got contacted to do the show, I was so up my butt nervous about it. And I over engineered everything. I was like, I'm a legal distiller. This is a moonshiner show. Like, I gotta fucking come correct. And then when I showed up with my like 60 pounds of fucking beets frozen in a cooler, I realized that I had gone way too hard about it. I was like, I'm making absinthe. I've got these spiralized beets that I left we freeze dried them because like flying with frozen stuff, they're like, it cannot melt or leak. And I was like, heard, dry ice. And then I showed up there and I put the cooler on my balcony. So it was like so fucking hot there. Doug, can we just talk about how sweaty I was on the first episode and how I was so led astray as to like what was going to be cool?
I would have
with,
never
like,
brought it up.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
no,
turn off the
I
ventilation
bring it
in
up
the
every
building.
time. You can see it like starts here and then it's here and
We
then it's
didn't
just
wanna bring it up.
everywhere.
We wanted to ask about it, but we just went.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'll bring it up. I ain't scared. So I like left my cooler open on the balcony trying to thaw these fucking beets. Didn't happen. So I go into this and they're like, you have an hour to mash. And I was like, these are fucking frozen.
She's got like the
Like,
ew.
and this was like season 2. So at the time, you had to both cook your mash and then have it cooled to pitch your yeast in an hour.
You just
Like,
made me
as the
tear out of
show,
my nose, by the way.
yeah.
You did.
I mean, also, I am sorry because that's probably not.
I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't comfortable, but you're trying to. Neither is
I'd
trying
be
to
worried
fall
if-
these for in an hour. I'm good.
I would be concerned if you thought it was comfortable.
Sure.
That's
There's
where
ventilation.
That's where my concern would lie. Yeah.
They have ventilation in that building, but when they start to film and the cameras roll and the microphones are on, they're recording us, our sound and our speaking, they turn off all ventilation. And then you're in a room in Tennessee in the summertime with 3 stills running and
Fucking
no
turkey
ventilation
burners.
whatsoever, and the doors are
all the
closed.
lights.
No
It
thanks.
is
And people use
extremely hot.
stills. Like I've been to parties where people use stills and they heat up water in it to heat the room up. So I can
Yeah.
only imagine 3 stills
Breathe.
rocking and rumbling, no circulating air. Oh,
Yeah.
you're first off, I'm
It's-
dying of heat stroke, but good job for you
I
guys.
mean, we've all been there, so I mean, we know how hot it gets during the summer. So yeah,
Like,
that's got
yeah, I'm a soft body person and sweaty in general, but like under those circumstances, I pretty sure I lost like 8 pounds in just. But I gained it back with all the drinking that we did after
Sure,
hours.
right,
So yeah, I just maintained. But so like Amanda touched on all of the people who come on the show, we are all masters of our craft, but we are coming into this environment with equipment we're not familiar with like I've never made on anything on the show that I've ever made in real life. But I do it because I love the puzzle of it. I love learning. I love trying to figure it out. So
Puzzle. It definitely is.
it's a puzzle. Like it's like Chopped. You have these ingredients and you have this specific thing you have to do, and then you just have to fucking figure it out after that.
And they hold
I
you to
think it
certain
is-
circumstances, like you need so many days
Yeah.
to ferment, and you only have so many hours to run this still. And as a distiller, you have to take the skills you know and your understanding and be like, how do I do this properly?
Yeah.
Right.
Like
So
a
it is
mash
definitely
taking
a
an
puzzle.
hour, get fucked. like a distillation taking 3 hours, get even more fucked. Like, to do what we
He's my
do in our own environments.
But kudos to
Uh,
everyone who goes on that show, whether you did
Yeah,
poorly, whether you
100%.
did bad. I talked to some people that are like, "Oh my god, I did so awful." I'm like, "But you really didn't. Like,
You
you're your
didn't.
own worst critic." And
Yeah.
everybody that came on that show, that was hard to do. And
Mhm.
it doesn't matter if you won or you lost, you did something freaking cool.
You just
And
showed up.
you inspired other people. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter, what you do or how you did it. Tanya, Tanya, Mama B, she
Yes.
did great on camera. She did great. She was like personable. She was beautiful, and she was hard
Mhm.
on herself because she didn't win. But at the end of that
Yeah.
episode, what I remembered was like everything she said on camera, and I was like, she did great.
Yep.
That girl did
Yeah.
good, and she was hard on herself because as a woman, she lost. And
I think
I've lost, and I was like, damn, I lost, and I was the girl, and all the boys, I lost, and I
Yep.
made us look bad. And I've been
But you
hard
know
on
what's
myself. Be
crazy?
like, Sorry?
Amanda, you look at the people that being a woman and having to go through this show, it's like it's hard. But you even look at the guys that lose. John Bent, yeah, like
Yeah.
John Bent's one of our best friends on the show. Great guy. We
such
were
a
in
great-
Tennessee. Oh, we love the guy. So we made him shack with us in Tennessee one time.
Hi,
Funny.
John. He told me he'd be watching, by the way, drinking some blueberry moonshine made by some crappy
Yeah.
Ohio. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. Wonder who that could be. I don't know.
John's like, no, I'm going to get a hotel. I'm like, you're not getting a hotel. You're staying with the American Whiskey Boys. He's like, yeah. I was like, yeah, you're coming. So he shows up, and we wanted to watch his show. We wanted to watch the show at the Airbnb, and he was so hard on himself. Like it broke our heart. Like we were like, dude, like he's like, no, I don't want to watch it. Like I didn't do what I'm like, dude. You first off, I'm not gonna lie to anybody. Amanda, you're great. MyKala, you're great. Everyone else is great. But my son, who's 9, think like he's watched all the shows.
Mhm.
John Bentz is his fucking hero. End of story. I'm sorry to tell
I love
everybody
that.
this.
No,
But-
firefighter,
Like-
of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't take that personal at all.
And he calls him the John Bentz. Like it is the John Bentz. So like you guys go on the show, whether you're what people say first, second, last, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's still a
Okay,
bronze
you-
medal in the Olympics, dog.
Yeah, but you're on the show, you're killing the shit. You just said they shut the air off, the circulation, right? It's hot as fuck in there. You got 3 stills. Those get up to how hot, guys? How hot?
It depends. Alcohol evaporates at like 172, 173. Most of the time you'll see production at like 180, 190, but like water boils at 212. But those fucking fires go like hot.
Yeah, that environment itself is
Yeah.
enough to put someone in a whirlwind. Not to
stress.
mention, the stress, their conditions. It's just everything.
But what I realized, sorry.
No, and just like what Chris Salmons touched on, he made a comment on here. It's just almost you win in the end. It's extra
is.
respect. You guys have done what you need to do.
Well, you look at those.
You've killed it.
How many people applied to the show, right? There's a lot of people
So many.
that are offered to come to the show, which we've talked to a couple of them, that they end up not going, right? No, and that's no disrespect. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Not it's not a fail in life. It's not, but it gives you that much respect for the ones that do. Whether you win, you lose, what you call lose, nobody's losing that show.
No.
First off, you're out there, you're giving it what the fuck you got. You're dealing with the climate and the situation, and whether your beets are frozen and you just didn't,
And you're just sweating your fucking balls off.
but
Well, I think so going back, I was like, cool, I did the show. I'm never fucking doing this again. But then I started watching some of the subsequent seasons because I was like season 2, and I was the first person from Portland to go on the show. And then season 3, someone else from Portland, Daniel Ruiz, who now owns an extremely successful and amazing fucking distillery in Washington. He contacted me and he was like, I don't know about the show. And I was like, well, go into it with here's all of the information that I learned about what I would not fucking do ever again. Like, don't try and do your job on the show. You cannot do your job on the show. Break it down into its parts and find the way to do the best that you can with each of the hurdles that they throw at you. Like you can't fully demonstrate your distilling craft on it. You can show talents, and like I'm not saying that anyone on there isn't talented, but the stuff that we would do at home is not what we're able to do on the show. So you almost have to completely separate those two and just take the knowledge that you know from your job and then figure out a way to do like apply that as best you can on Master Distiller. And it was actually Amanda watching your episode and your ingenuity with the frickin' was it nitrous? The little like thing where I was like, that is an innovation that is so fucking clever. And that was actually my thinking when during the rapid aging segment of the tournament I did. I was like, I'm gonna get a fucking cement mixer.
Yeah, girl,
I
I
was
saw you
like,
do that.
I was like, I need a tool to like do the thing, and I only have 2 hands, but I'm gonna have like 4 jars aging. So like, I need to find a tool. Here's the problem. How do I solve it? Cement mixer. Like you gave me the courage to like go back on the show because I was like, she thought outside of the box, which is one of my favorite things about this industry. So like, how could I think outside of the box subsequently? And so I agreed to do the tournament because I was like, nah, I got this.
I
I
was
got
so
this.
happy to see you come back too. I was like,
Oh,
she's
yeah. I was
I had
so
like MyKala t-shirts. No, I'm just
so
kidding.
yeah.
Wear
Well,
one.
you didn't send me a MyKala
I
t-shirt.
would wear one.
If they have my size, I'd wear it.
I'd make one in your size.
Would you?
I can screen print. Yeah, I can screen print. We'll fucking knock out some
You're
MyKala shirts.
So sweet. You know what I mean? So sweet. Listen, so I know there's a lot of shit we can sit here and talk. Women, distilling, brewing. It's a topic. It's a good topic. And it can be talked about for days. But we can't do that. I know, Amanda, you've got a lot of things going on in your life. MyKala, a lot of things in your life. So I don't want to keep you guys going forever. Okay. I don't want to, as much as I want to.
Yeah.
Do that, right? So
Sounds like part.
Before we go, can I quickly highlight women-owned distilleries that are operating?
you guys can keep us on here as long as you want. 2 of you to know we don't have to stay on here all night. So go for it.
Perfect. Okay. I appreciate that. And I think that was a good segue because, like, the vast amount of historical knowledge that we have, like, we literally could be here for a 6-hour podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And I just want to give a big shout out to Amanda for doing such in-depth research on the history. Like, I involved myself on it, but you fully led this discussion, and I just appreciate and I admire your dedication to just being able to honor the people who, like, the women who came before us, and I can't wait to continue being your friend.
Yes, girl, for sure. And yeah, I love the history. I love the science of it. And everybody's like, "Oh, you're like that nerdy science girl that does all that crazy shit." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I also am like the biggest history nerd there is. I try in my distilling to just recreate the history. That's what I've been doing for the last 2 days. And
Totally.
I'm literally running stone direct fire furnaces in one of the first legal distilleries in the United States. And
Cool.
Making historical recipes. And I'm privileged to be able to come assist them. Like, they've allowed me to be like, yeah, come and help us. And I will literally, like, in my free time, I'm here just assisting. Like, I just volunteer. And my fiance is like, can't believe this is what you do on your day off. This is what you're doing for fun. You're working like 12 and 14-hour days on your feet. And I'm like, I love this. Don't you love this? Like, this is history.
Like,
this is like a porthole through. Yeah.
Yeah.
The women
if I'm not doing it here, I'm doing it at home. Like,
yeah. I love the history of it. And yeah, thank you for saying that. To me, when you wanted me to talk about women, and I want to pay respects to the women that came before us that we might have forgotten about, because they did awesome things and they led the way for us to follow in their footsteps. And like you had said from the very beginning, we can circle back to the beginning where we thought we were being rebellious and going against the norm or the grain and trying to be a woman in a male-dominated field. But what you quickly learn as a woman in the distilling industry is you're following in a ton of badass women's footsteps. And that makes me proud to keep doing what I'm doing and showing other women that it's badass, and not just women in general, just like anyone in general, man, woman, whoever you are. it's not even just distilling really either. It's like whatever that scary thing is, that thing that scares you that you want to do, you should just do it. Because
Just fucking
I
do
did
it.
not think I would be doing this in my life. It's just something I liked. It was really scary to pursue this. I mean, everything I do, every time I work at a different distillery or I approach a different job, and I kind of like scab and intern and just volunteer all over so I can learn a bunch of different things. But I get nervous and I get worried and I think about it a lot. But it's always really beneficial in the end to do that scary thing. And I don't care if my dad used to say, I don't care if you're shoveling elephant shit for a living, be the best damn shit shoveler.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't really understand.
Yes.
I didn't really understand that as a kid, but then as an adult, I'm like, okay, that was really good advice, because it doesn't matter what you're doing, just try to be the best or just do a good job, and you're gonna progress. You're gonna progress. So just do the thing that scares you. Go out and be a distiller if you want, or shovel elephant shit, or like be an astronaut, or be a scientist. Whatever that thing is,
do that the fucking thing.
Yeah,
and I think like I just came up with a nice little quotable. Like, we're not rebelling, we're reclaiming.
Yes,
like we're not going against the grain. We're taking back what was always ours.
Why is MyKala always with this guy?
She's always got a good
MyKala's words.
Another teacher. Another MyKala teacher.
I know.
Yeah.
Not rebelling, we're reclaiming.
We're not rebelling, we're reclaiming.
Well, MyKala, I don't know. You know her? Listen, that's what.
I got some opinions about things.
So what I will say, guys, Amanda, MyKala. First off, MyKala, we're so happy to have you on it. MyKala. I call her MyKala. It does say that. Plus, she is MyKala. So I'm honored to have you a part of American Whiskey. I'm going to say that like every time because it is an honor. But what an honor it is to be able to, for Amanda, for you to come on our show. I know MyKala and you guys are friends, and that was a really good gateway to make this kind of episode happen. But I do want you guys to know that the reason we did this episode is because we sat down as a team and thought about what would make a good episode, and we have more episodes like this to come. Okay, it's not going to just stop at women's. This is a great one, and it's something that needs to be talked about. Amanda, we're so honored to be real, right? We're so honored to have you a part of this episode.
I mean, it was really fun, actually. Yeah.
Well, and I want to give these guys some credit. This episode was not my idea. They approached me with highlighting women in brewing and distilling and asked me to reach out to women that I knew in the industry. And you were the first person that I reached out to, and the first person to say "fuck yes." So,
I wouldn't say this was a group idea. I think we are a team, but Dylan was the one that brought this to the table. We talked about it, and we ran with it, and that's what we do as a team, right, Dylan? It's
right.
We have these ideas, we throw it out on the line, and we want to know, is this silly or not? Even if you fucking thought it was silly, MyKala, we were running with it. Okay, but
like you were looking for acceptance. They're like, we're gonna do this. Do you know people who would be interested? If not, then we're just gonna ask you all of the questions. But can you reach out?
I'd say something real quick. I just saw on the chat that my buddy Wes is watching, and it's time for him to go to bed. So I want to say hi to Wes, and I really appreciate it. He's the best.
So one of the best things.
Have a good night, buddy.
One of our favorite things about Wes was we got a hold of the mom, Megan. Sorry, I wanted to call her mom for some reason.
Mama.
He's a mother.
Got a hold of Wes's mama.
So he started watching the podcast, and we surprised him to a trip to Tennessee, and we pulled up to their house one night, and he looked at me in the dark, looks at Dylan, and he goes, "Justice League?" Looks back at me, and I'm like, Big Sturg. So we love him too, but it doesn't matter what we think. Amanda says, "Night, buddy."
Night, Wes.
Speaking of the junk, this is Josh Jones.
That's Josh Jones apple brandy right there. He's sipping on the night, guys.
Oh, nice.
It's actually pretty good. So we appreciate it. That don't go
she ain't
for it,
did her
girl.
distilleries yet.
I was going to say, I haven't even done the distilleries. We've just been saying nice things about each other.
Well,
Okay. So the free.
people want to be on here as long as okay.
Yeah.
Don't hate on me.
I'm not hating. I'm just interrupting.
It's true.
Give him a taste of his own medicine.
Shut up.
Yeah. So obviously biased, but the first one I want to highlight is Freeland Spirits here in Portland, Oregon. 3 women started it, a master distiller, and then 2 other women who are hallmarks in their industries. But they opened Freeland in honor of Mima Freeland. The distillery was a brainchild of these women, and they used wisdom from Mima to propel their distillery to the forefront of distilleries in Portland. I remember working events in Portland when they started coming to markets and coming to other things. I had just started my distilling career, but I was still working for another one when, like, in the sales, out on the sales force. But they're glass bottles. They focus on gin, but they also do a lot of grain to glass whiskey. One of the women in their company is a farmer, so all of their whiskey, or a lot of their whiskey, is made from grains that come from this farm. They are some of the top tier producers in Portland, and I love that our community was so quick to get behind them, and we were like, yes, we love what you are doing. We love your product. Here's how we can support you. It is one of the most beautiful fucking bottles I've ever seen. I tried to get a screenshot, but I posted the website. It's just gorgeous. And it just celebrates the excellence of women in this industry. Like, there's a gorgeous woman holding like a plant on their bottle. Their tasting room and their distillery is so beautiful. It is just everything I could have ever hoped to work for or like work in. And the time that I spent there was truly inspiring. The next one, Montana Distillers. It's in Crested Butte, Colorado. It was established in 2008 by Karen Hoskin, who was at the time a run maven extraordinaire, but she wanted to create an exceptional premium American rum that honored the traditions of high altitude distilleries in both Central and South America, as well as volcanic regions of the Caribbean. And then in 2023, there was a shift in leadership, with the distillery being passed to the head distillers Megan Campbell and Renee Newton, who, Renee, aka Crash, she was on Moonshiner's Master Distiller. She ended up winning her episode, and her episode was the like taste identification and then replicate, like taste
that
the
one was
spirit
so
and then
hard.
replicate it. When she told me, because we actually met during filming, that episode was filming during the tournament I did. When she told me what she was doing, I could never have signed could never have signed myself up to do that.
That was an
That
intimidating. That would have
Yeah,
intimidated me.
100%. Like, here, taste this, then replicate it. Doug, that is crazy. And she hit all of the fucking highlights. She hit all of the notes, and she ended up winning. So she and Megan, the former head distillers of that, now owners, and then they also had their marketing guru, Sean Richards. So they ended up taking over the distillery, but they are distilling at 9,000 feet elevation. So if you think about, like, I mean, we're not that far from sea level, but to think about distillation at 9,000 feet elevation, cooking recipes, making oatmeal, those recipes differ if you're at a super high elevation. So to then rethink about what you know in distillation and then figure out the adjustments to do it at a high altitude,
Yeah.
that is
That's a fascinating, like, it's a huge learning experience, and then for her to document the changes she would have to make would be very interesting, and then to also document if you're finding that these improve fermentation, or do they have improvements on flavor, do they have
right.
improvements on quantity of just, like, there's all kinds of factors that come into play that fascinate me about
Totally.
that. It's a huge
100%.
anomaly, right? It's cool.
Yeah. Like, how do you plan around that? And once again, high elevation distillation, it kind of has its own history, but most of it is in Latin American, like Central South American and Caribbean. So how do you do that research? Like, how much of that information is actually available and how much of it is just try it and send it and then learn from it? So, like, yeah, the fact that Karen even tried it in 2008, I think is such a hallmark to, like, maybe this is one of the facets of ingenuity that we're going through. Like, how do we distill stuff in climates and elevations that are typically not found in, like, normal distillation? Because so much of what we do at, I don't even want to say normal, but like at a more commonly found elevation, like we're all grain, we do this, but they focus on rum there. So if you're doing sugar washes, like rum and things up there, like how do you change that and how does that affect what you're doing?
Rum and sugar washes can be really finicky and have a lot of trouble
Yeah.
shooting with the fermentations anyway. So that would be very, very interesting.
Yeah, you have so many opportunities for off flavors, and the acidity isn't there to lower the pH to make it an environment in which like bad bacteria can't grow because it's just sugar and water. And we've seen how liqueurs and like other stuff, if you just have sugar, it can get gross. So how do you replicate that acidity during fermentation to make sure that the flavors that are put off during your distillation are only the ones that you want? Like, that's something that I want to pick Crash's brain about so hard. But, like, not trade secrets, but just information.
pH can be important, especially with the rum fermentation. I would be curious if she documented any of her findings. Or
Yeah,
like, I'm sure she's
I
recorded
also,
them, but
right. I'll shoot her a message and maybe we could get all three of us on. That would be pretty fun.
that would be cool. That would be cool.
So the last one I want to highlight, this is Steam Donkey Brewing, and it's in Aberdeen, Washington. So it's actually not too far from me, but I have tried 5 of the beers that they put out because a friend of mine lives up there and actually sent me a care package. And they were like, this is a woman owned and operated distillery. So, like, all of their cellar people, all of their brewmasters, and now their entire sales force is all women. It opened in 2017, and they were the first brewery in Aberdeen in over 70 years. The last one was in 1948. But they have some flagships that are like a Super Donkey, Double IPA, and their Kalaloch Kolsch. But they have some other really tasty beers. The ones I tried were the Punchy Brewster Hazy IPA. They also had a delicious stout. But it just seemed it was such a hallmark of like women knowing what they're doing and doing it to the point of extreme excellence. They also participate in She Brew, which is a yearly event where women brewers around the United States have a recipe and all of us make the recipe and then pour the beer in the tap rooms or distribute it as we can. They're also in the Pink Boot Society, which is just a way of networking to encourage women who are in this industry to know that they are not alone. And I think you had a couple of women focused networking groups that you wanted to tell me about. You said like women in bourbon.
Yes, that's exactly, yeah, perfect. So one is, and if any other female distillers are out there, I recommend trying to sign up and join Women in Bourbon. It's women in the whiskey or bourbon industry. So there's distillers, there's distillery owners, there's blenders, barrel finishers, and they get together and they have these symposiums for women in the industry. And these are like big names that are people doing big things in the distilling industry right now. And they come together and they just do like seminars, and you can sign up for their seminars. They have a big one in August of this year. And if you want information on that, MyKala, I'll let you know because I might be flying solo there. And but some really great women were like, sign up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's whiskey authors. It's just like all different people in the industry, and they get together and they share knowledge. There's also, I just recently met a really cool chick in the distilling industry. Her name's Tracy Franklin. And when I met her just recently, a couple weeks ago when I was distilling at Mount Vernon last time I was here, she came in and her energy was just through the roof. I was like, who is this woman? I love her. And then I got to talking to her, and she's like, she's an educational distiller. She's a consulting distiller. She goes around to all these big distilleries and consults, and then also teaches seminars. And there's something called the Spirited Collective. And she said to sign up for that is just women distillers that is helping to help other women distillers go forward in the industry. So I have applied to sign up for them. I don't know. I have to check my application status and see if they've accepted me. But it's another apparently really cool group for women in the industry. I also want to say, like, shout out to Lisa Lowry. She's another awesome badass in the distilling industry. My God. My friend Cheryl Bias is an awesome distiller. I mean, there's so many that, like, I'm just randomly shouting out names. So if I love you and I didn't say your name, I still love you anyway.
I actually got to meet Lisa because she was competing. I'm pretty sure it was in the gin episode during the second season when I competed because we did a full fermentation of our base product. I got to meet the people at the beginning of the filming, and then we had like a 5-day fermentation, and then I was there for 9 days. So I got to meet every single person during season 2, and that especially at the time during COVID, like, we had nothing better to do than just fucking hang out with each other. And so there was like a little bit of the trauma bonding there, but Lisa was one of the most energetic, knowledgeable, and honestly just genuinely wonderful human beings that I had the privilege to meet that whole time. She is such a badass bitch, and she has been killing it ever since. And she's another one who, like, she went home third, but then you look at what she has accomplished after the episode. And so just for people who are considering being on it, but thinking that, like, maybe your placing during your episode might have an effect on your career, like, it fucking doesn't. It absolutely does not, because you're just in the weeds. You're in the shit of it. Like, you're doing your best in a crazy environment. But if you have the talent, this can only serve as something that can show your dedication and also show your humbleness. Like, show that you can go into something and fail, but do it gracefully, and then just go on to succeed afterwards. Like, that competition is, I do it again in case anyone from MyKala is wondering and listening. I do it again because I definitely need to win at least once. I got second place. I'm close. I'm so close. So very close.
First place on American Whiskey's Hearts, though.
Don't do it again.
I know. I do it. I will go on again if I can do something that I've ever made before. I feel like I did pretty good in shit that I've never done before. Give me something that I know how to fucking make. And then we'll see who shows up.
There you go.
Good point.
I'm ready to try the stuff you're bringing here. So.
Oh, I'm so much stuff.
I can't wait for her to try the barrel chocolate rye we got.
Oh, so
yeah.
good.
Yes, I can't wait to try that too. That sounds so good.
Chocolate rye, chocolate wheat, Ohio blue corn.
It's so good.
Hell yeah.
But guys, I appreciate you so much.
Yes.
Honestly, I was like, so the whole time we were like planning this, we're like, how long do we go? All of us, other than MyKala, because we talked about this, we're like, we're not going to make Amanda sit there over an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Just kidding.
I delegated. Okay, listen. I told Jay, I was like, listen, this is gonna happen. They told me like an hour, but like, if y'all were to see, like, I had just like talking points.
So many notes.
Go big. I could have.
I literally did the same thing. The first sip and solve I did, I was like, hold on, let me show you all of my fucking notes. And I was like, all of these.
MyKala, I'm interrupting you now. I said we go 45 minutes on the true crime segment. I won't keep you after.
Yeah.
2.5 hours.
2.5
Look,
hours.
we're all the same. Peanut's got the same. I've got so many notes on my phone. I was like, I didn't get to say a single thing.
Yeah, but they don't.
Yeah.
They don't want to say.
But I was
Well, you didn't.
Sorry.
But I said everything that they said I had a segment into, but it just felt
Can we be
natural to
honest,
leave
though,
it
boys?
alone. You
Can
know,
we all
just-
be honest though? Nobody came here to listen to us.
No, God, no.
Okay. Nobody cared about us. boys.
I'm not a woman in the industry.
And I got mad respect for Jay because I told my wife, she's like, "How long do you think you're going to go tonight?" I said, "Probably under an hour." She looked at me, shut the
That's
door, and said,
wild.
"Probably not," and walked away.
Yeah.
While we were muted one time, I even told Sturge, I was like, I saw Amanda look over. I was like, he's got to be in there. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, we
I
didn't
think I
do
did
dinner
too.
yet. So in his
Yeah.
defense, I came straight from the distillery and I worked all day. And I could have stayed there later, but I was like, I have to leave early and I have to get ready and then I have to go get something.
Why didn't
We are gonna go get
you
something to
haven't gotten
eat.
you the food?
Sorry,
Sorry,
just such a
what are
workaholic.
you fucking doing here, Jay? Why did you have it
I was going and got food, but
Yeah, all right. We
Jay,
put
I'm
this
just
out.
being shitty. I'm
He
just
wants
being
to go
shitty.
somewhere
I'm
nice.
just kidding.
he's
I'm
a
just kidding.
Well,
He's like,
So-
I'm already dressed up for this. Will you end it?
So
Yeah, I got my fucking fancy flannel on.
So Phil and I are in the academy right now. We're starting the same job, and we leave. We get up at 4:30. We leave super early. We have to drive over an hour to get there. And I asked Phil, I was like, "You going to go home to change?" He's like, "Nah, bro." He's like, "I'm just going to stay at your house." And he's like, "Well, you know." But no, this was a great fucking time. Super
It was.
worth all of this.
It was.
Jay, take her to a nice restaurant, brother.
Yeah,
If
you
you have
fucking
time.
better. And you're
If they're not
paying.
closed.
You're paying.
Is he drinking
Oh,
on?
it's now closed? Is that what he just said?
It's my
No,
coffee. He's
I
drinking
said,
my
I hope they're not closed.
He had to pull out the coffee. Jay, I'm actually going to get a shirt that says "I love Jay." Honestly, 'cause he put up with this shit for so long.
I
Oh,
also
thank you.
I admit my privilege because I'm 3 hours behind you guys. So I'm like, yeah, it's 7:30. Like I'm not not.
Go to bed.
I know.
Until
know.
4 fucking morning. I
Love-
text him. I'm like,
in the most loving way.
dude, it's like 6 a.m. and Michaela's still
Like,
going on our
that's it,
text
the
message.
most-
I'm like, Dylan.
yeah.
Dylan's like, dude, she's like 3 or 4 hours behind us.
Well,
I'm like,
Yeah. I'm like still just like no. I'm cruising in space and stoned as fuck. What you want, kid?
At a certain point through the night, I just messaged MyKala off to the side, like, let's let Sturge.
no, but here's the
Yeah.
thing.
I realized that and I was like, ooh, that
But
is
my
actually
wife's a teacher. She has to get up early too. And when it goes off, she like I just go to ignore it and she's like, "What'd they say?" I'm like, go to bed, honey.
She's invested.
Yes. So I got one question before we get off tonight. Amanda, I did not warn you of this question because the moment that I started, this idea of American whiskey came to me 6 years ago. And, you know, the moment that I started to when Dylan got on here all the way to when Phil's turned on to here, it's a question that I got away from, but I do want to continue to ask. Can you tell me one thing that you love about America?
America?
Yeah, one thing you love about America. All
Okay.
politics aside, everything aside, personal beliefs. What is one thing that Amanda Bryant loves about America?
I love, well, just one thing. That's so hard. I love so many. I love
I
the
know,
freedom.
yeah.
Freedom.
Don't worry.
My word is freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom.
Yeah.
To be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. Freedom to, and some of those freedoms aren't real freedoms, right? We're still like breaking the law and doing what we want to do. But I live in a country where
Breaking
I
the
am
law.
privileged enough to have the freedoms to pursue things that I love to do those as a career. And we have capitalism. That's another thing that I love about America is capitalism because I can open a business and do whatever I want to do. And I can capitalize on my passions and the things that I love to do. And it's America. So the freedom and the capitalism that we have here enables us to all really pursue our dreams and live what is the American dream. And if you're not living the American dream, then you're holding yourself back because the only one holding us back from doing anything in this beautiful country that our men and women fight for our freedoms for us to have, those veterans out there and people that are in the police and all branches of the military sacrifice so that I can have my freedom. And that's what I love the most about
you did.
America.
We got a fellow Marine right here. And Dylan
Thank you
here.
for your service. Yeah.
Amanda Bryant, mic drop.
Yeah, but
So, it's a
I was
news
like,
show here.
Easy
you can ask me
question,
that
easy.
question after. I answered it last week, and I don't have anything better than that. So
You don't have to answer it again.
No, first off,
I was like, is this going to be a question every time? Because
yeah.
I don't know if I could come up with
Something new every single episode.
that would be wild.
How do you feel today, MyKala? What do
just-
you love about America tonight?
Yeah, I just start naming states like I love Washington, I love Ohio,
Time out,
I love
MyKala.
Massachusetts.
MyKala, hear me out for a
Yeah.
second. Give me
Okay.
something that you didn't give a shit that you love about America. He's annoyed with me.
No, I mean yes, but also I will.
You could ask me that
I-
every time I come on. I could give you a different
Wait, every time you
that's
come on,
fun.
I mean,
I've come up with
that's
different ones.
Wait, does
Time
that
out,
mean
does
you'll
that mean
come
you come
back,
back on?
Amanda? Would
Well,
you?
I think we should do also American history
Ooh, yes.
Okay, I would
because
love
I
that.
told the guys, I said I really do American history. That's my thing.
Oh,
It's like
I love it.
Let me
going
think-
through American history.
Let me think about it. We'll
Um,
do it. We'll do it.
The woman
Yeah, I
thing
was
is something
like,
that I actually
like-
had to go back and be like, I know a good amount about women history distilling, but I didn't know everything. So I had to go
Right.
back and read it all.
And I mean,
I
we
think
didn't
that was the
even get
biggest thing.
to, we didn't even get
Yeah.
to cover everything that like we did research on too. Like that's what's crazy
Part
is
two.
like we could do a monthly fucking episode about the history of women in brewing, and we
Really
would talk
could.
about different stuff every month.
It
Oh
is.
yeah,
But
I
we're
have-
not
I have a
locking-
bunch
we're
of
not
stories I
locking
didn't
you
get
on.
to tell you.
I
have
know,
some
like
stuff.
we're not locking you in to any specific.
Oh, we're locking her in.
But well,
We're my schedule real fast. So,
yeah.
This wasn't so
Oh,
bad.
it's
So
wide
I
fucking
still need to
open.
do still
Oh.
talking, right? Because I have told Sean
Just her
Risby that I was
cheeks.
going to do still talking like forever, but he didn't
I
have
mean, but you-
MyKala hit me up, and of course I can't say no.
I know.
to
the
MyKala.
J's,
Um,
the J's,
But I still need to do still talking for those guys because I
Okay.
do love their show, and I literally just like procrastinate on it like a hard. And then there's another one that was asked that I have to do hopefully by the end of this month. But I am gonna try to do this more often because in my mind I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. It's gonna be
We'll get
hard,
you
and I get
first,
anxious
first of all.
about it. But then it's fun. So I had a
Okay.
great
Right.
time.
No,
Thank
yeah.
you all
Yeah,
I'm
we
really glad
for
you
your
guys-
time. And thanks for everybody that watched this. If you
Yeah.
hung out till the end, you are
You
a
are a
You're real.
gentleman or a lady and a scholar. And
You're a real
Well,
one.
actually, they're probably listening right now because this is about the time it turns into a shit show. So
Yeah,
we
they
do
do.
have some
Like,
of our
people
shit
that
show
do
listeners
not-
on it.
They're like, wait,
Waiting
it's
for
still
it to take
going.
a turn.
Time for the debauchery.
and it's not going to happen tonight.
I just want to say, Amanda, it was such an honor to be able to actually like talk with you. And I know that we have been meeting to meet up. Like, I didn't make it to different jams out there, but like, you have been someone who I have so admired, carving your own path through being a woman distiller on television outside of just the competition sphere, which we know is like even different, but now you're on like syndicated fucking television regularly, and knowing how you feel about being on camera, it is such a testament to your strength of character that you feel a higher purpose of like you want to be an example for other people like us who might be hesitant or tentative to get into the industry. And that, I mean, me less so, but like you are such a fucking gem of a human being.
hear you speak and like the things that you say, remember, like stick with people, and you just don't realize that. So don't
You're-
give yourself any less credit than you deserve.
All right.
But yeah, and thank you.
But-
I appreciate that. That's
The wider audience that you have, I guess, like I'm not diminishing what I can offer to the people who will listen, but you have the opportunity to speak to such a wider audience.
platform
and-
is a gift. Yeah.
Exactly. Like
You have
it's
to you
not
can choose what you
rebellion.
do with that gift, you know?
Yeah. It's not rebellion, it's reclamation. Like you are being an active part of us reclaiming an industry that was always ours. And I appreciate that you work. I appreciate the work that you do to make that happen. And
that's
I
what
love
tonight's
you.
all about right here.
Yep.
That is what is
Exactly.
like when you think about what it's all about. This is it right here. Our goal is just to give a platform for other people to use. Obviously, MyKala, you, Amanda, you guys have a platform outside of this, and that's what it was. That's what we wanted to hear about. Is we're just American whiskey. We're nothing huge. It's not a big podcast. We just love to get people like yourselves on here to share your journeys and to let other people know that if they have something that they want to strive towards, that they have a goal to, that they dream about, that it is possible. Because I'm sure if you look back 15 years ago, you wouldn't see where you guys are today, right? And that's what
Oh
it's
God,
about.
no.
Don't ever limit yourself, guys.
Nope.
Never
Yeah.
limit yourself. If you have a dream, you chase it. End of story. 100%. So I think, Amanda, you owe Jay a dinner tonight, so do not let him pay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I
go
would
eat
never
food.
ever do that.
Please go eat food.
So we're guys, at the end of the episode, we always just say each of our names. And at the end of it, we'll just say we are American Whiskey, because it's not just the podcast. It's just it's a hashtag, right?
It's family.
America, it's
Yeah,
family.
it's family.
So
It's family.
Yeah.
it is. So I'm Big Sturg.
I'm Dougie Fresh.
Justice League.
Peanut.
I'm MyKala.
Amanda.
And we are
American
American
We're
Whiskey.
American
Whiskey.
whiskey.